Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Today we are going to see the importance of Azure functions. And most important, I would like to do some kind of practical demonstration of how Azure functions can be used for various kind of activities one would want, and definitely the benefits of it. So yes, first, what exactly are these cloud native applications? Let's go back in the history. We have got applications which are hosted in on-premise infrastructure. There is a development team who would develop the application, hand over the applications to the infra team. The infra team is supposed to do the assessment of the requirement, probably the load assessment, the software assessment, the configuration of the machines which are required, and so on, and accordingly provide the infrastructure upfront. Yes, they have to also take care of monitoring, and there is always a possibility of kind of surge in the traffic. And in those kind of cases, if they don't have sufficient hardware to back up with the additional RAM and the processor, definitely the applications would crash. So that is when people started migrating now to cloud. Times have changed, cloud has become popular, everything became service. Before I continue, I would just want to use this sentence: anything I buy or anything I sell, I always see either as a product or a service. For me, everything is a product or everything is a service. And the world is now moving from product based to service based. We don't want to have a dedicated ownership, because if I have the ownership, yes, there is no doubt the ownership benefit, the privacy benefit, but we lose from lot of additional advantages what nowadays cloud also provides to the organization. So yes, hardware is nowadays seen as a service. We procure hardware in the cloud, we create virtual networks, we create virtual machines, and on those virtual machines, we would like to deploy our application. So all our existing on-premise applications, when we want to do lift and shift, especially the legacy applications where probably the developers are not even there in the organization today, if you want to do lift and shift, yes, the virtual machine would be the best option anybody would opt for. The kind of separate setup we have in on-premise, the same kind of setup we can create in cloud, and we will be up and running through virtual machines. We can create web servers, we can create database servers, establish connection between web server and database server. Yes, all these facilities, .NET application you may have, Java application you may have, Python, any kind of application which you have probably hosted in on-premise with zero changes, almost no code changes, we can move it to VMs. But VMs themselves have problem. They need maintenance. I need to ensure that I always have the VM Windows update, Linux updates applied. All the security patches have to be taken care of. Yes, definitely, I have to also take care of the scaling aspect. When the load increases, we will have to probably bring in load balancer into the picture. We will have to add more virtual machines. When the load decreases, to reduce the cost, we will have to decrease the virtual machines, and so on. So this is the infrastructure as a service aspect of the cloud. You can use virtual machines today in Azure, you can use in AWS, you can use it in GCP, wherever you like, you can actually have the virtual machines. Lift and shift, no code changes, deploy. Yes, the advantage which VMs also give is you can go into the virtual machine, remote desktop you can do, and some kind of tweaks if you want to make at the operating system level, you would be able to do it. But too much of work for the operations team to maintain it. So that is when the industry gave us the PaaS services, the PaaS equivalent of hosting virtual applications, websites in the form of, let us say, Azure App Service if you are using Azure, maybe Elastic Beanstalk if you are using AWS. These are the ready-made PaaS services we can make use of for deploying our application. For developers, it is as good as just right-click and deploy, finish. There is nothing more they'll have to do. Do we need to make code changes? Very bare minimum, if any required, there would be code changes. So yes, We moved away from virtual machines, and today lot of applications are using app services. But then the development also is changing now. People earlier were doing a lot of monolithic application development, where we would have a single project, and in single project we would program all our modules. We would probably have one single database and so on. But times have changed. We don't want to anymore do monolithic application development because it has a lot of drawbacks. Over a period of time, it becomes too large to maintain, to debug. And if it is a single unit, anywhere the problem is, the whole application would be down, the complete website would go down. Many drawbacks are there with monolithic architecture. So now everybody is moving towards microservices based architecture. So what we do now is a very large project, we break it into pieces. And these pieces, we develop them individually. There would be smaller teams now developing smaller components of the application, and eventually all of them can get together in making a bigger, larger application. So microservices applications are taking over now, and definitely there is a need for reprogramming the whole solution. You have to modify your existing code. You have to look into the services which are provided by cloud for hosting these kind of applications. For example, you might use orchestration services. The most popular orchestration tool today is Kubernetes. You might probably go for on-premise implementation of Kubernetes, but that would be too much of hassle again. So why not use something like Azure AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service, or similarly in Amazon also we have got Elastic Kubernetes Services. So people now started rebuilding the applications. They started making the required changes to the application so that they are suitable for the orchestration frameworks. But whatever it is, whether it is virtual machine or whether it is app services or whether it is AKS, we have to plan our compute resources in advance. So much of compute, so much of memory, so much of processing speed, so much of scaling factor, all this has to be planned properly. But what if there is no load on the application? Will the cost stop? Definitely not. There should be at least one instance of the application always running, and that cost is going to be always there. And you have to, yes, there are certain features where we have got auto scaling feature, but not always we would be able to use those things. So there has to be regular monitoring based on which one will have to scale up and will have to scale down to reduce the cost, or let us say to keep the cost in control and at the same time provide the best user experience with almost zero downtime. Going forward, the applications are now going to be completely written from scratch. These applications will not probably have any history, let us say, before cloud. They would probably take birth in cloud itself. Using the services of the cloud only, they will be architected. So yes, if new software development is happening today, keeping all the new enterprise requirements in mind, I would like to leverage all the features of the cloud, especially the serverless compute aspect of it. Now, what is this serverless compute? The serverless compute is a facility where, when used by developers in building their applications, would not have to create any worries for the IT team at all. An application which is developed and deployed into a serverless environment will ensure that is automatically going to scale as per the requirement of the user. That means your compute resources, the memory and the processor, are going to be used only when there is a need for it. That means when there is traffic, automatically these resources will be borrowed from the infrastructure, used and returned. Definitely, when there is no traffic, the resources usage would come down to zero and the billing would stop. So basically, complete infrastructure management for the applications which we are developing today would literally go down to zero as we are delegating all that to the cloud service provider. So these type of applications which take their birth itself in cloud is what we call it as serverless cloud native applications. And going forward, this is becoming a big boon. Lot of people are going to even write microservices as serverless compute Azure Functions or AWS Lambda. That's what is the future all about. So legacy applications, we did containerization and deployed them into either as app service or maybe Kubernetes services, monolithic app service, microservices, Kubernetes. Keep all this aside, build direct Azure functions, provide the required functionality, and let the complete infrastructure be handled on its own. So what is an Azure function? Azure function is a serverless compute service. It's a service actually which can execute your functionality, which can be any business functionality, maybe order processing which we want to do whenever a new order is posted. It can be any kind of processing which a individual can write probably as a simple function. If you know you can write something simple function, you can deploy that as an Azure function. Of course, the function can make call to many other objects, invoke their functionalities for implementation, and so on. But point is, it is a serverless compute implies the code is going to be given the resources on demand. You don't have to set up any initial infrastructure for your function. You don't have to choose any particular specific number of processors or so much amount of RAM. You don't do that at all. So Azure functions are going to run as a script or a piece of code in response to a variety of events. Now, what are these variety of events? Good, we are going to write a function and let's say we deploy it as an Azure function in Azure cloud. All fine. But how are those functions going to be executing? These functions are going to integrate themselves with various other Azure services. Maybe I'll post a message into a queue. And in response to that message in the queue, we want an Azure function to execute. Maybe a file is uploaded into the blob. And the file would probably need to be processed further, and I would execute an Azure function. Some event has been captured by an event grid, or a stream of messages posted into the event hub. A notification has been raised through a notification hub, or maybe you might have used service bus, enterprise-based topics and queues. Any of these things, what you are saying here, can become a trigger point for an Azure function. Definitely, Azure functions can also be invoked using HTTP triggered. That means when you want, you can use a HTTP URL and trigger an Azure function. In short, an Azure function is some ready-made functionality which can be executed on demand because of a trigger which would be occurring based on an action on so many other cloud services. One use case which I can give you here is a simple diagram actually, though it is not very sophisticated. Something which I actually demonstrate when I'm teaching a full-fledged course in my curriculum. Let us say we have a web application onto which the user is uploading all information about customers. The basic details about the customer is uploaded, and one of the information would be the photograph of the person, the customer photograph or person photograph. That is also being uploaded here. We want to save that photograph. So here we are going to write code for pushing that photograph into a blob container. In a storage blob container, I would upload the photograph. And at the same time, with the information about the blob container and also the ID of a record saved in the database table, I'll create an object, convert it into JSON format, and store it as a message in the queue. What is the advantage? As soon as a message comes into the queue, I would want an Azure function to get triggered. And this Azure function, when triggered, would retrieve that message. And of course, the message is going to have the ID of the person from the database. It will extract other details if needed. The trigger is going to have the URL of the blob, which it will fetch. Now, based on the URL, the Azure function can read the complete blob from the container. Probably from that image, create a thumbnail, or as you might have seen, probably write code to extract text from that image, if at all any, using the AI features which Ankit has demonstrated to you in the previous session. And then with that data, it might save it into the database, or it might again create one more image. Let's say it created a thumbnail image, or probably on that image, one watermark is added, and the watermark image is put back into the blob container. So users are uploading images. The site is creating watermark on those images. And that task we can simply run in background rather than doing it in the main application itself. The user experience here is going to be fantastic because the user doesn't have to wait for all this activity of reading the image, reading the data about the user, putting probably that data as a watermark on the image, saving it back onto the blob container. All that doesn't have to be done. And Azure function can do all these things in background. And most important, Azure function also integrates with a WebJobs SDK. There is a WebJobs SDK API with which if you build Azure function, lot of coding efforts can be reduced. We can do some kind of binding of Azure functions to the queue will not require us to write code for reading the message from the queue. Binding would not require us to write code for probably putting the image back into the queue. All that can be taken care of through basic attributes programming. So this is one proper use case one can visualize. Of course, we don't have sufficient time to do the complete use case here, but I would like to definitely show to you people how the Azure functions can be hosted in cloud. Before that, Azure functions have three types of pricing tier: the app service plan, the consumption plan, and the premium plan. There are three plans which are supported by Azure function. Now, what is the basic difference between all the three? So if you take app service plan, most of you people, if you have ever worked with Azure app services, you understand what is an app service plan. A fixed amount of resource allocated to your app service, or now in this context, Azure function. So you know definitely at the end of the month, this is the amount of bill I'm going to get from Microsoft. There will not be any additional cost, but everything has to be accommodated in that particular infrastructure as per the plan setup. So yes, we can set up Azure functions with app service plan, but the limitation of this is the function can only scale to the extent of the amount of resources given to the app service plan. It would not be able to scale beyond it. But advantage, fixed monthly pricing, fixed monthly bill. You know, predicted how much is the amount you are going to pay. Second plan is premium plan, very similar to the app service plan only, but you get better performance in premium plan. You get more additional resources if needed. You can go up to 4 core instances. Definitely here also predictable pricing, but larger sizes, unlimited execution duration, VNet connectivity for security, these kind of additional benefits we are going to get in premium plan over and above app service plan. But the most beautiful part of Azure function is consumption plan, the serverless compute. When Azure function is deployed as consumption plan, it can be treated as serverless compute. Yes, you don't have to allocate or premeditate. This is the amount of memory needed. This is the amount of processor needed. You don't have to worry about it at all. You just choose consumption plan and leave it to Azure to allocate resources to your Azure functions as and when there is a load on it. When it receives the request from different users, let's say huge amount of messages are posted into the queue. To handle all those messages, automatically Azure function is going to scale up. And when there are no messages in the queue, automatically the Azure function is going to scale down, and it can even go to the extent of zero memory, zero processor to stop billing completely. So this is the kind of benefit which Azure functions provide in building modern cloud native application. No projection on cost. You only pay for what people use your services. There are different versions of Azure services. Yes, there is definitely a limitation on consumption pricing tier. Right now, 3.x, no more in preview, it's in final released. Maximum you can have one Azure function running for 10 minutes. The 10 is in minutes. Within 10 minutes, your Azure function is supposed to complete the task. With an exception, if you are using HTTP trigger, in that case, your function should end in 230 seconds. And the reason behind that is, if it is HTTP trigger, it comes via load balancer. The request to Azure function would come via load balancer, and load balancer would time out after 230 seconds. And the response would not be sent to the client because the connection would be broken. So by default, an Azure function in consumption pricing tier is 5 minutes, which we can extend up to 10 minutes. 10 minutes of dedicated execution for one task. That is too much of time, actually speaking. Yes, if the time beyond this is needed, don't use Azure function. There is another service called as Azure Batch. For large time-taking tasks, Azure Batch is an appropriate service. For long time-taking tasks, there is no way you should do it in Azure function. Yes, if you go for app services, default is 30 minutes. You can make it as unlimited. But as I told you, you are limited by the amount of memory and processor you are allocated. Here, you're not limited. It can scale to any factor. This is how you would probably change it. So let us very quickly see how we can create an Azure function. There are multiple ways of creating an Azure function. You can create an Azure function in Portal. You can create an Azure function through a Studio also. To keep it simple here, I will go for creating an Azure function, for which first we'll have to create is a function app. Start with creating a function app. And give some resource group name. Give some name. You decide now into the Azure function you want to host a container, or you would like to put direct code. You can definitely put Docker container, but I want to go with code. And you can see there are different options, not just one language, multiple language. I'm going with .NET. You can choose the version of .NET which you want. Right now only 3.1 is supported. Very soon probably they are going to also support 5. But for Azure function at this point of time only 3.1 is supported. You may have to create a storage account in background. This is where actually the definition of your Azure function is going to be stored. You can choose between Linux or Windows. It's your choice. And the most important, the pricing tier. The consumption serverless pricing tier, or the functions with premium pricing tier or app service plan. Yes, if you go with premium pricing tier, you get a lot of options. Elastic pricing, based on the location, it is supporting Elastic Premium. Lot of 7 GB memory, 14 GB memory, 840 ACU, pretty expensive also. Whether your function have load or they don't have load, this much cost you are going to incur. So I don't apply this. I simply go for the consumption pricing tier, and that's it. Nothing to be chosen now. You may integrate with your App Insight. Because I selected Windows platform, it has built-in capability to do integration with App Insight. I'm not interested in that. If you would have chosen Linux, to integrate with App Insight, developer will have to write code. Through SDK, they would be able to capture the telemetry data and log it into App Insight. So this is going to create a function app. Function app is just a host for Azure function. In one function app, we can have multiple Azure functions added. And whenever the scaling has to happen, it's always the function app instance which is going to scale. So first time, a function app will be loaded into memory, and in that the functions are executing 1 request, 2 requests, 3 requests, 4 requests. But at a point when it finds that the function app is not able to handle all the requests, automatically a new function app instance will be created. And in that new function app, the new functions are going to execute parallelly. All this is self-managed by Azure infrastructure in background. We don't have to do anything. That's the beauty. So we will wait for the Azure function app to get created. And in that function app, for beginning, I would probably write a very small function. Let me also at the same time create one storage account. I have something which I'll use it. And into this storage account, I would like to create a queue. Posting a message in this queue, I would like to trigger a function. So let's call it as some demo queue only. Yep, my Azure function is also ready. Queue is also ready. Let us begin with first writing an Azure function which probably gets triggered for a HTTP call. A HTTP trigger function. Select that, click on add. And I have chosen here develop in portal. So in portal itself, the function can be edited. You can write the complete function in portal itself. Yeah, for the sake of demo, I don't want to make any changes. I just want to show you that this function is in C# language with the extension CSX. As you can see, the extension is .csx. When you write on top #r, it basically means that you are trying to refer to a NuGet package. So automatically this NuGet package will be downloaded in the infrastructure where Azure function has to execute. And rest all is straightforward C#. And at a high level, this particular function is receiving HTTP request object because it is an HTTP trigger. And from the request object, we are extracting the name of something which is added as query string, or the data might be provided in the form of request body. So name is either taken from the query string or from the request body, and it is appended to hello along with some additional message. But if name is not provided, some other message is printed. I'm not making any of these changes, but this is where you can write code to probably read an image from the blob and do some kind of image processing. Like I told you, generation of thumbnail or adding of watermark, anything you can do. And here only you would write code to probably save the image back into the blob storage as well as update the database record. We want to execute this particular function. To invoke this function, we can use this get function URL. So this is the URL which I'll give it to the developers of wherever we want this function to be invoked. There we can provide a link to that URL. So if I show you that URL, it's a very basic one. This is the endpoint of Azure function, API, the name of the Azure function the name of the Azure function, and this is the key. This is the security key. Only the users who have access to this key will be able to invoke this particular function. So where is this key actually? Here you can see there is a functions key concept. So the key has come from there. So now I'm going to copy this whole URL. You can see by default it's hidden. I'm going to append to it, let's say my name. Copy the whole URL, put it in the browser directly, and the name has come. Don't give the name, it will give you the other output. Yeah, the functionality of the Azure function in demo is very simple, nothing great. But you would understand here very clearly, right now this method is being invoked using HTTP GET. You can definitely invoke this Azure function using HTTP POST. And when you're invoking using HTTP POST, from request body, you can get all the data. You can specify what methods can be used for invoking this Azure function. You can restrict those methods. Rather than allowing all the methods, you may configure and restrict it. Go to integration, and there you can see this particular method I'm supporting only on get and post. HTTP request, click on that. Get and post are the only two methods I'm supporting. In case I want to support other HTTP methods, I can do that as well. So this information about binding is all there in another file along with the .css, that is JSON file, function.json. The complete binding information is available here. How the data will be given from the request to the Azure function is controlled by this. Authentication level, the parameter, the first parameter name is supposed to be request. The type of trigger is HTTP, and so on. Not really returning anything concrete, just HTTP return type with string. That's it. So this is a very simple HTTP triggered function. I would like to take something more interesting, which is a queue triggered function. Azure storage. We already have one storage account. We can directly connect to that storage account itself. And you can see that this particular function right now is only taking the message from the queue and putting it in the log. So here we can see the logs. Now the data type has changed. So now I would like to go to portal in one more tab here. There I'll post a message into the queue. Ideally speaking, a program has to be written, a C# Java program has to be written, which is supposed to post a message into the queue. But for this demo, I'm directly manually posting the message into the queue. Azure Function App Storage. How do I know this is the queue? You can actually check here. If you go to integration, Azure Queue Storage is linked to a queue. Where is the queue name? Not given. We have created demo queue. Do that. Demo queue as per the string managed by Azure Web Jobs Storage. Where is this Azure Web Jobs Storage? Save this. You'll actually find this Azure Web Jobs Storage as an app setting in your Azure function. Go to app settings of your Azure function, configuration app settings. And this is where the Web Jobs Storage is. And this Web Jobs Storage is by default referring to DSS function app storage. So So that is the reason I'm going to this particular storage, and in that storage I'm posting the message into a queue which is also configured here itself, where whatever I have done in the integration tab, all that, as I said, will be visible to us in functions.json demo queue. So let's see. I go back to run.csx, open the log, post a message into the demo queue. I didn't use this. You can definitely use that by changing the connection string. Into the demo queue, I would like to post a message. So let's see this in the background. Add a message, testing. Okay. And you'll see the testing has come here. So keep posting the messages here. Whatever message you post here, you'll see that the function is executing in background. And point is, how much code did we write? Hardly anything. Not much of coding we have done. We did not write at least code for retrieving the message from the queue. All that is happening because of the data binding which is supported here. It's all because of this built-in data binding feature. So yes, we have seen how a function is executing when a message is posted here. But can this be a file name which is probably uploaded into a blob container? Yes, I can give the file name here from which it should read the content, and let us see. I'm going to add now to this Azure function under integration an input parameter. And here the input parameter in container, in this particular blob, we would like to post the content. That's the point. So let us say I give here a file with extension txt. But what is that name? The name has to be something. So what is that name we have to define now, so that from that particular file the content will be read and given to my parameter file content. I'm going to write now a parameter to my function called as file content. Small change I am supposed to make now. Add here string, and that's it. This we'll have to make a change now. Because name is a parameter, we will have to write here a class. Ideally, a public class in which we are going to have public string name with get and set. And of course, you may want to put one more parameter if you want, get and set. This class, let us say, is what? Some name you can give, demo. And here I'll have variable which is of type demo. point is this class has a property called as name, and from that name.txt the content is going to be assigned to this. Let's see if that's working. So file content, that's it. Let's save this. So I'm going to do now is upload a file by name. Let's change a bit so that it's more meaningful. Imagine this is person and this also should be person. So I'm going to put an object which is of type person into the queue. Here I'm printing the name of the person along with, let's say, the ID of the person, name and ID. And I'm also printing the content of the file, which will be based on the person name, where into the blob storage. And coding is 0. No coding to read from blob, no coding to read from queue, nothing. All that is going to work because of the data binding feature. Save this. Yes, some errors. Fantastic. Delimiters have to be closed. Compilation is successful. Cool. So first I'm going to do is create one file. And let's say I'll save this as sandeep.txt. And this file I'm going to first upload into a container. So here I should create a container. Now what should be the name of container? Whatever we have given here. In container. Create a in container. Let's assume that the file is already there in it. So I'm going to upload the file here. And now it's time to post a message into the queue. Into the demo queue, I would like to post a message, and this is supposed to be a JSON object, so which will have name, and the name is supposed to be Sandeep. ID, you can give any ID. So equivalent of the object, which is here. Of course, right now I'm manually posting it, but ideally speaking, this is supposed to be done through another application. An application is supposed to post a message which is a JSON equivalent of this. And that object data will get assigned to this. From that, name property will be picked up. Name.txt content will be assigned to this from in container. And we will see all that data gets printed here. Let's see. Cool. The message is posted. Yep. Let's see. All that. It's fast over actually. Sandeep 1, and the content of the file is this is a demo file. So this is the beauty of Azure Function. We are able to almost bare minimum coding able to achieve what we want. That is why these are getting popular day by day. Yes, we can see that for Azure Function, there will be one host.json file where we are going to do all the configuration required globally applicable to all Azure functions. And for every function, there will be a JSON file where binding information is present, and run.csx where you can actually write the code. Azure function otherwise use the same infrastructure what we have it for app services. You can write timer triggered function, specify the timer in cron expression format, so that at a particular point of time, this minute, this second, the function should execute. Like that, we can control it. We can have key value pairs added. I showed you already to the application settings, and read that application settings if you want. So here you see I've taken the similar example, employee ID name. Employee class is a parameter here. This is binded to the file, which is based on probably the name of the employee object, which is posted here as parameter. Into the queue, an item will be posted. In employees container, based on the ID, the file name is present, and so on. You can also write Azure functions in Visual Studio. You have direct template available for writing Azure function in Visual Studio. And once you write it in Visual Studio, you can simply right click and do a deploy. So yes, with this, I come to the end of a small introduction to what exactly is an Azure function and how it can be used for writing microservices based functions, which can be invoked using URL, or probably functionality which can get invoked because of some kind of asynchronous communication, where via messages into the queue, or probably the messages in the service bus, event hub. All this infrastructure we can use for executing the functionality in Azure function. Thank you.